Oh, that's so much better than when I stood up here talking to myself. Welcome. Okay, so everyone, we welcome you and invite you to find a seat. And it's so wonderful to see so many smiling faces here today to celebrate these two amazing recipients. Well, welcome to the 52nd Annual Aldous Dixon Awards. I'm Stacy Burnell from the WSU Alumni Association Board of Directors. We're honored to have President Brad Mortensen with us today, and we look forward to hearing from him. We also appreciate the support of Vice President Betsy Manel. There she is. I would like to acknowledge the members of the Dixon family who are in attendance. Will they please make their presence known and let us thank them for their support of these wonderful awards. Thank you for being with us today. Each year, the Alumni Association honors faculty and staff who, through their dedicated service, commemorate the spirit of one of Weaver's most caring and dedicated presidents. Today, we celebrate two individuals who exemplify those same qualities. We are pleased to honor Allison Barlow Hess and Susan Matt, and we welcome their colleagues, friends, and family members. We invite you now to enjoy a video presentation about President Dixon's legacy. Following the video, we will be pleased to hear a message from President Mortensen.
Aldous Dixon served as president of Weaver College from 1937 to 1953 and is considered one of its most revered and beloved leaders, guiding the institution through the Great Depression, World War II, and the beginning of the college's expansion. Throughout his 16-year tenure, President Dixon's passion for education and love of people left a lasting impression.
Henry Aldous Dixon was the student's president. He was an open door, open-hearted man who had a heart as big as a bucket. Did the students, had a great sense of humor.
And I think that this warmth radiated, and I think the students knew it. And they loved it because he knew their names. And although the school wasn't as big then as it is now, that was really quite remarkable.
He was a father figure for them. He didn't sit in his office. He would go out and wander around the halls. And he got a chance to talk to a student that was that much the matter. He never seemed to be heard.
Prior to his presidency at Weaver College, Dixon also served as president of Weaver Academy for 1 year in 1919. In 1937, he earned his doctorate degree from the University of Southern California and became president of Weaver College later that year. When World War II came along, Dixon answered his country's call to arms by building Weaver's nationally recognized vocational and technical education programs.
What do you think about World War II and what that meant to this area? And the vocational building was all in place, ready to train pilots, ready to train mechanics. There was a big Navy cadet training program here. Weaver College hummed 24 hours a day.
When the war ended, President Dixon began to focus on his vision for Weaver College, including plans to expand the campus and create a 4-year institution.
It was a natural thing to have Ogden as the second largest city at that time as a seat for a 4-year expanded campus facility. And he began really promoting that.
He did a lot to get Weaver started. He opened the way for the new campus. He opened the way for for a bigger college.
He was so anxious for education to be available for everyone, his enormous stress on the vocational programs that people had skills.
I would think about the bus driver that brought the students down from Brigham City. He'd sit out in his bus and read or sleep or wait for the kids to get out in the afternoon.
This just sent my father crazy, and he went out and brought him in and enrolled him in class. And he ended up getting a PhD, and he was in charge of the vocational school.
President Dixon was also well known for his wit.
He not only held good faculty meetings in the spring quarter, he sent a memo around to the faculty and said, curriculum shall fail. He used those words. We need to have a meeting to repair it. They're calling a meeting to the faculty up on the Yellowstone River, or the Snake River, someplace up a long ways away like that. And all those are interested will meet at that meeting on such a time. And we'd all get our fishing tackle ready and put our waders on, away we go.
And he didn't forget ever what it was like to be young. And he overlooked a lot of pranks that someone could have made a big deal out of, kind of turned a blind eye.
We were in the zoology lab working with rabbits, and we were working with other kind of animals. Embalming them, and doing embalming, of course, you use these large water syringes. So one thing led to another, and finally somebody got squirted with water on one of these syringes, and somebody else got squirted with a larger syringe. And finally, Whip Cook got a bucket of water, and he decided he was going to throw it down my back. And I rushed out of the lab, and as I got to the hall, I made a quick turn, and there was Henry Aldous Dixon just walking there. And at that time, Whip Cook let fly with the water, and it soaked our president of Weaver College at that time. Now he said, it's all right this time, and don't let it happen again. So, and I thought that goes to show you the quality of man.
Today, Henry Aldous Dixon's legacy is honored by those who understand the power of education. He will always be linked to Weaver, as few leaders of this institution have had such a significant and memorable impact.
We just have to look around and to see this, certainly this campus, the vision he had for the college and what it could accomplish. Look at the things you're accomplishing now that would have pleased him so much.
We are honored to have President Mortensen with us today. As we take time to remember the president who served as our second and then our sixth president of this fine institution, we are fortunate to hear from our current president, lucky number 13, Brad Mortensen.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you for this really, really special event. I remember when I started at Weaver State in 2004, the first time Anita Priest and Norm Tarbox took me to the Dixon luncheon, and they said, this is a really big deal. And it's a big deal in two ways, I think, and the video sums up one of those. Thinking about the tremendous legacy that H. Aldous Dixon has here at Weaver State University today, and the vision and passion and kindness that he showed as our leader. It gives me pause every day to think about what are we doing today to make sure that the Weaver State University 50, 70 years from now is the type of institution it can be the way that H. Aldous Dixon did for us during his tenure here. And while that can be very daunting, The great thing is, and it gets us to the second part of being here, we have a tremendous team at Weber State that makes that possible. And I don't have to carry that burden by myself by any means. And we get to honor two of our outstanding Weber State colleagues and community members today. And both Susan and Allison, you're so deserving of this recognition for the contributions you've made to our institution. And to me personally, Susan, I really give you credit in so many ways for, although you probably don't even take this, you may not want this credit, but I just hear you saying over and over again with the vision that we had previously for the institution. It's like, well, that makes sense. And when you talk to your policy people at the legislature, they understand that it's important to be a dual mission institution, but we need something that connects better with our community and our students and our alumni. And so I get such warm responses now when I tell people that our vision is to be a leader in transforming lives by meeting students where they are, and challenging them and guiding them to meet their goals academically and in life. And when I get that warm response, I was going to say, well, we also said some thanks for that. So thank you. Susan contributes to our students, to our academic life or university, now to our integrated studies program. So worthy of this recognition. And Allison, I don't even know where to start, other than to say, and this is just a very personal micro example, but it sums up everything that Allison has done at Weber State. One day, I was up in the signpost offices and I had just met with some students there, and this was probably 12 years ago, and I don't even remember what the meeting was about. But I walked out and I picked up a copy of the signpost at the stand, just on the stairs on the east side of the atrium, that go down. And I was reading the signpost as I walked down the stairs. And no, I cannot read and walk at the same time. So I tripped and kind of fell down the stairs. And it gets better. For some reason, I didn't really hit my head, but for some reason, I passed out from this little episode. And I kind of came to and sat there in some soft chairs that were there at the bottom of the stairs for a minute and everything. And some people came around me, and Allison was one of the first ones to arrive, as I recall. It's all a little bit blurry, but she had the perfect thing to say. She said, "Brad, that's not the first time I've looked at the signpost and passed out." So she made me feel better in that moment of embarrassment and a little bit of pain. But it sums up what Allison has brought to every task she's been given, whether it's good news or difficult news. She has the perfect thing to say and it helps us figure out how to move forward. So it's such a, yeah. It's such a pleasure for me to be here to see you, Susan and Allison, receive this recognition and to share it with members of H. Aldous Dixon's family as well. And at this point, it's my pleasure to introduce President Dixon's grandson, Jim Larkin, who will share a few words.
So polished, it's hard to follow, obviously. Now, my career was in engineering, so most of my presentations have been a little more, should I say, analytical rather than emotional, but I'll do the best that I can, because I come from a great legacy. As he mentioned, I'm Jim Larkin. I know many of you. Some of my other family members, cousins are here. Louise Dixon Larkin was my mother, and she was an amazing lady, as were all the Dixon girls. The video, I wanted we were stuck with Zoom last year. I don't think that was me. But, we're stuck with Zoom last year, and I did a presentation via Zoom and went through some of the key milestones of President Dixon's life. And it was a fascinating learning experience for me. I learned a lot about him doing that. I learned a lot more about my ancestors, my predecessors, as an adult after breaking 50 than I knew before. And so I want to take just a little bit different bent this year and look at some of the things. President Dixon was an amazing individual. And the video, as you have seen, and those of you who have seen it many times, as many of us have, is very lighthearted, as it should be. That's the way you would want to be remembered, okay? But I want to point out, as we think about legacy, and as we go through our lives and our challenges, and we've had some particular challenges over the last couple of years, between the pandemic and now the war in Ukraine and the depression or recession, depending on your point of view, in 2008. You can say we've taken some hits. President Dixon wasn't always an old man. We got a picture up there, good, 1911. So unfortunately, he passed away relatively young. He was 76 when he died in 1967. I was only 14 years old. He was just a kindly old grandpa. I didn't think of him as anything more than that, because that's the only way I had known him. And that's one of the regrets of my life, is that I didn't appreciate what an amazing individual he was and what he had been through in his life to get to that point. So this is an appropriate picture from him as a young missionary. He served in southern Germany, as did I, and as did my other grandfather, Larkin. So we have a number of ties there to Germany. And that was in 1911, and that was one of his first setbacks he had to deal with. He was thrown out of Germany. And we actually have a copy of his ejection papers from Breslau. So I don't know exactly what caused it. Maybe he pulled a water prank. I don't know. I have no idea. We don't know what caused it, but we do know that as a young missionary, he was expelled from Germany. And the Germans have a very long memory. This caused him problems later on when he was a congressman. And they wanted to take him, he was going to go back in 55 on an agricultural mission, and the German government wouldn't let him in. Germans hold a grudge. I'm not telling you, as I say, I served as a missionary in southern Germany, so I'm not telling people who have dealt with the Germans anything that's new. But they came back and said, well, the State Department did his visa and said, oh, what the problem is, President Dixon, but they're not going to let you back in the country. And they pulled up this expulsion order, and they finally worked it in, but they weren't going to let him in the country. So then we have, if we can have the next slide, please. I often think of my grandfather in terms of this quote from Mark Twain. When I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant, I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much the old man had learned in 7 years. So, yeah, it was grandpa. I think a lot of things. But I do remember one thing he told me long before he died, was he said, in looking back at his life, he said, many of the things that at the time he thought were his greatest setbacks in life turned out to be his greatest blessings. Now, we've often all heard the expression, when one door closes, another door opens. I've also heard that referred to, it usually means you're in jail. But in this case in life, it happens. My oldest son, Brian Larkin, who many of you may have known or had as a student, is currently a physician working for IHC Healthcare in Salt Lake. And as we look at the pandemic that we've been dealing with, and with the wars and so on and so forth, these were all things that President Dixon dealt with as a younger man. I mean, when we look at him being here in 1918, that was just after the Spanish flu. I mean, we think COVID was bad. That was nothing compared compared to that. We think 2008 was bad. That was nothing compared to the real Great Depression. Okay, we think war in Ukraine is bad. That was nothing compared to World War II, or very little. I don't mean to minimize those things. My point being, he was an amazing individual, and yet more of him that was, hard as steel. You wouldn't know that because he didn't turn bitter. He didn't let it make him sour. He maintained his sense of humor. My son Brian was working at the West Valley Instacare in 2008. Some of you may remember March 18th. You probably don't remember exactly what that date means, but it turns out we had a 5.7 magnitude earthquake that was, epicenter was Magna, Utah, which was about 4 or 5 miles from the clinic where he was working. And it actually happened on his way into work. He got to work, and his first patient had been injured by broken glass from the earthquake. The second patient was a COVID patient. After he got through treating his patients, he turned to the other doctor he was working with. He said, "Have you ever treated an earthquake and a pandemic victim on the same day?" And he admitted, no, he'd been working for 30 years, but never had. He said, now if the third patient comes in with boils, we've got a pattern. So the key thing I wanted to make is tough times, and this is tough times never last, but tough people do. And President Dixon was an amazing individual. He made it through the tough times in order to keep his sense of humor throughout his life so that he could leave this legacy to us of these amazing times. Professor Matt, I saw in her bio that she had done some things with the University of Tübingen. So yeah, Germany is an interesting place. Many of you probably knew Klaus Gergel. He taught his geography here for many years. I did not have the opportunity to meet Klaus until a few years ago as part of Sunday Utah Pioneers. And my point of bringing up Klaus and Dr. Dixon and relative to history, which I think Professor Matt can understand, is if we study history and we learn certain periods of time where people were in certain places and at certain times, we don't have to learn a whole lot about them. We know what they experienced. When I first met Klaus, about 4 years ago, he passed away last year, and I was reading a little bio on him for our SUP group, and it said he was born in Berlin, Germany in January of 1944. Now, those of you who study history, Berlin, Germany in 1944, January, that was, and so when I first read that with Klaus, I said, this is amazing. I said, it's amazing that you survived. Well, the person I'd really like to meet is your mother. You were just a baby. You couldn't do anything. But she survived. Turns out the hospital where he was born was bombed just a few days after he was born. So the key thing is tough people, tough times don't last, but tough people do. Just to kind of close up and summarize other things in President Dixon's life, his father died suddenly in 1923, where his father was only 56. Dick was only 33 with 4 small children. He had left Weber State, come back to Provo, and was going to be a banker. And he started with the bank that his father had started, founded, and then his father suddenly died and left him to take over the bank. Well, that was okay until 1932, when as part of the Great Depression, the bank collapsed and went out of business. And one of my favorite movies is Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life. Okay? So President Dixon experienced just what Jimmy Stewart experienced. Unfortunately, in his case, there was no happy ending. There was no hands full of money at the end. They just gave away all the money. The bank went out of business. They closed the door and walked away. So then World War II, the video talks about that. Imagine, sure, had a lot of fun after the war. They did a lot of fun things, but during the war, imagine trying to set up an educational system where you are supporting the war. The Air Force Base was huge at the time, booming. Now, I can't imagine, it talks about running 24/7. Now, you're responsible for that. I can't imagine what that's like, knowing that, and it was by no means certain that we would win the war at that point. So in closing, I just want to reference another one of my favorite movies, which is also a Jimmy Stewart movie, 1950, Harvey. How many of you are familiar with the movie Harvey? Okay. There's a particular spot in this, in a nutshell. He's this very kindly older gentleman. He's actually a drunk, but we don't really emphasize that part of the movie. But he has this friend whom people think is imaginary, which is a 6-foot rabbit, Harvey, who's a puka. And there's one key scene in the scene, this also reminds me of my grandfather Dixon, where he's sitting in the cafe with the fellow who's trying to commit him to the insane asylum. And he says, his name in the movie, his name's Elwood P. Dowd. He says, years ago, my mother used to say to me, in this world, Elwood, you can be oh so smart or oh so pleasant. Well, for years I was smart. I recommend pleasant. And I've often thought of that over the years. My grandfather, in spite of the things, the hardships he went through, he was oh so pleasant and oh so smart. And how fortunate we are to have people here with the Weaver State family that we can associate who are both oh so pleasant, oh so smart, and oh so pleasant. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for those remarks. I am a communication graduate of this outstanding university. I see some former professors here. And I also wrote for the Signpost. And I hope that none of my articles induced any sort of fainting on your part. That was all I was thinking was, oh my gosh, was it one of my articles? Okay. We will now watch a video about our first recipient, Allison Barlow Hess. After Allison's video, Amir Jackson will present Allison with her award. Amir serves as the co-chair of the Community Relations Committee on the WSUAA Board of Directors.
This has been such a humbling experience receiving the Dixon Award. I've attended many times. I know the recipients, Susan Matt, all the recipients who have been honored in the name of H. Aldous Dixon. To be in this company is really an amazing experience. I've had the marvelous opportunity to see this campus from every side: adjunct professor, advisor to the Signpost and the student radio, academic advisor, and then as the public relations director. And the thing that I think has been so marvelous has been the ability to get to know the student, staff, and faculty of this campus, learn their stories, see their dedication, see their work, and then be able to celebrate it in so many ways. I am so proud of and feel so fortunate to have been here to witness helping students recognize their own potential, seeing what they can accomplish, and then watching as they achieve their dreams, they climb ever upward, and what a gift to be able to see them achieve the great things that they have done. I really have to thank the Alumni Association for hosting this award, and for John, my mentor, friend, and colleague, and supporter who took the time to nominate me and seek the letters of recommendation. I want to thank my family, my husband, my kids, who have always believed in the work I do. But I especially have to thank my mom. At age 46, after raising 8 daughters, she returned to Weaver State University and earned her degree. She then went on and got a master's degree. And then she went out of state for a couple of summers to earn a PhD. She picked that up at age 60. And then she came back to Weaver State and taught in the Department of English for 12 years. We even team taught a class together. What an example. As I wrap up 30 years, I can't leave without saying what a blessing it has been to be part of the Weaver State family for this long time, and I appreciate the opportunity and thank the people that I have been associated with so closely and have made 30 years a wonderful career.
I sincerely considered falling on my way up here. And then I remember how much I paid for this suit. Not to do that, but it wasn't thought. We actually fought over who would present Allison with the award. And I wasn't at the board meeting that day, thankfully, because I'm glad that it didn't end up in bloodshed. Somebody spoke up for me, but I was really excited to present Allison with the award. I don't know Allison deeply. I have one experience with her that kind of sums up what I believe led to her, being nominated for this award. And that was that I was told to be intimidated by a pitch that I wanted to give to Allison about the project we were working on. And she was completely warm and welcoming. And one of the things that I think is a core character and somebody that I respect and appreciate is those who see potential in others and those who look at possibilities. Not necessarily what has been done or what should be done, but what is possible. And in that brief experience and exchange that I had with Allison, she exemplified those characteristics, which makes me extremely honored to be able to present her with this award. Okay, now let me get back on script. Let's see. On behalf of the WSU Alumni Association Board of Directors and Councils, it is our pleasure to present to you the H. Aldous Dixon Staff Award. Congratulations, Allison.
Okay. Amir, actually, the first time that I remember working with you was at one of my favorite events every year was a block party. Do you remember when Big Buddha interviewed you? And I arranged that. And I've been watching your amazing career ever since then and so proud of you. And Brad, I remember the day you'd actually come over to the signpost because I was writing art columns for the Standard Examiner, and I was interviewing you about why higher education is so important. And you, as I've watched you all of these years, you were sharing marvelous reasons why everyone should experience the joy of higher education. I'm sorry about the stairs. But it is an honor to be here today, accepting the H. Aldous Dixon Award. I actually told anybody who thought they might attend it would only last about 15 minutes because I have come many, many times and the time has flown by so fast that I honestly thought it was a 15-minute. So thank you for this lovely experience that I've enjoyed so many years in a row. I'm thrilled to be here with Susan. We've had many experiences in supporting and encouraging students and sharing their stories, and it has always been marvelous. Susan's written a lot about emotions. That's her specialty. She can tell you all about emotions, and I'm feeling very emotional today, being here in her company and many others who have received this award. I know that H. Aldous Dixon embody phrases that we consider to be hallmarks at Weaver State. We welcome everyone with a dream, and we put teaching first, and he certainly set that example. Seeing all of you here in person, and then knowing others who are online joining us virtually also makes me emotional. And truly, it is impossible to say how much you all mean to me. I know almost every person in this room personally. I've had experiences with each one of you, and they have made my career and my time at Weber State marvelous. 30 years is really such a long time that goes by so fast. I've been thinking, I thought a lot about a scene that Thornton Wilder wrote about in his play, Our Town. And it's the scene where Emily has passed away actually as a young mother, but she has the opportunity to go back to one day in her life. And so she thinks about the days that she would choose, and she picks what is a special day, but also an ordinary day. It's her 12th birthday. And she goes back to that day and sees all the wonderful people that were part of her life, her family and friends when she was a 12-year-old. She realizes quickly, it's a sweet day for her, but she realizes that we as humans don't appreciate the simple joys of life. Ticking clocks, sunflowers, food and coffee, new ironed dresses. Nobody even knows what new iron dresses are in this room except my mom. Taught me how to iron, and hot baths, sleeping and waking. That scene was always impactful to me. I actually thought a lot about it. And I would love to walk back into any ordinary day of the past 30 years. Because the people who made up those days were extraordinary. And they've changed and enriched my life in so many ways. As you saw, my mom graduated from Weber State. And so I've known for a long time, I knew long ago the transformative experiences and impact of the university. And so I remember I was excited when I saw a classified ad. And some of you remember what classified ads are. But it was from Weber State, and it was the opportunity to teach as an adjunct instructor. And it was the right time in my life, and so I applied for that. And Larry Staley, the comm faculty remember Larry Staley, invited me to come for an audition to teach in front of his class one time to present. And it must have gone well because I got the opportunity to become an adjunct professor. And 30 years later, I still remember that first class. It was in the basement of the then social science building, room 14. We had 14 students. We loved each other. It was a fantastic experience. And so I was thrilled to eventually go on and accept a full-time position as an instructor specialist. And so in addition to teaching, I advised the student radio station and the student newspaper. And at the student radio station then, KWCR, they broadcast every Sunday in Spanish. And that was a really interesting opportunity. And I realized even then that the students in my class did not reflect the students in this community. And so we tried to do our part to make that change. And we started doing an interview every Sunday in Spanish about why a student should participate in higher education and come to Weber State. So Brad, we planted the seeds. We began planting the seeds for your strategic plan that is growing and expanding that idea. But that was really wonderful. And the following year, I took over as advisor of the Signpost. And what I didn't know about running a newspaper could have literally filled an edition. But it was great memories. The second edition of the newspaper in the summer was my first personal experience with the threat of a lawsuit. Our student sports editor had written a column where she didn't identify the individual, but she called out a man who'd been at the gym in biker shorts, engaging with the young women in the gym. And she wrote an article that said, without naming him, that, you know, at the gym, you should do what you're there to do, work out and leave the young woman alone. And so he threatened to sue us, but he didn't want us to use his name. He still wanted to remain anonymous. So he wanted a public apology for an anonymous person. So I called the attorney who worked as our pro bono attorney representing student newspapers and told him the story, and he said a line that I'll never forget. Tell him to get a life. And a longer pair of shorts. That fall was actually, that fall semester was 9/11. And can you imagine how the world changed for all of us at 9/11? The students at the signpost took that opportunity on that day to do what they've been trained so well by Cherie to do before me, my predecessor, the signpost. And they covered that story from every angle and eventually won a national Society of Professional Journalism Award for their coverage of 9/11. And so that was really, to be competing with all of the universities across the nation and win that award was really something. But I also remember a personal experience of from 9/11, and that was about 3 days later when the planes started flying again. I was standing out at the Stuart Bell Tower Plaza, and for the first time on that, it's such a pretty place, and the skies were blue, and the first plane flew over. It was one of the jets from Hill Air Force Base, and as an American, as a citizen, it was really quite a touching experience. And the Stuart Bell Tower Plaza remains a place where I've had so many memories. One of them, many, the block party. And the fun things we've done there, purple pancake, breakfast. But, and my personal favorite is the Spirit Squad out doing a pep rally before the big games and events. I told them recently that the Salt Lake Tribune, you can watch for this, the Salt Lake Tribune is going to do a story highlighting our Spirit Squad. So I was with them recently and I told them I was their biggest cheerleader. I love our Spirit Squad. So that has always been fun. I remember the day when a Weber State student was killed during a senseless fight. And I was sitting with the editor-in-chief at her desk in the old signpost. Some of you remember that in the basement of the Union Building. And we looked in a phone book to find the father's name. Again, classified phone books, I'm not sure everybody. And we found his name and dialed him and it rang to a voicemail. But the student editor said, I understand your son was a wonderful friend and I'd like to tell his story if you'd be willing to call me back. And within moments, he called back and we did tell a wonderful story about that student and his life. And the father and the family loved it so much, they eventually became subscribers and we mailed them the paper every edition. So I remember the couple of times that we wrote stories that folks didn't like. So they went around campus and threw away all of our newspapers, which by the way is illegal. It costs you the cost of each paper if you get fined for it. I remember moving the newspaper twice as we remodeled and got a new space. And we didn't miss an issue, even though we had to move it back and forth. I remember the time when the big back to school issue was on the printer. It was on the, it was literally at the printer, ready to be printed right before school started. And the printer got shut down by the IRS. They locked up all the plates. And so we had to figure that out, but it was on the stands on the first day. I remember the year that the Utah Press Association, we won the General Excellence Award for the best newspaper our size in the state. And that same year we won Screw Up of the Year. And the judge wrote one comment, tragic. I remember this happened so many times, but one particular young student who sat in the back of the class, he was shy, had a beanie on, and he was quiet, but he was in the back of his journalism class and his peers started engaging him in. He eventually moved toward the front of the class and then joined the signpost staff and then became an editor. And we all went one time to a conference at BYU and we got just outside the boundaries of BYU. And I pulled over and we stopped and he smoked and I got a Diet Dr. Pepper. We love that memory.
He might be sitting in this room right now. He's become a dear colleague and friend. He's very health conscious now. He gave up smoking long ago. I did not give up Diet Dr. Pepper. In fact, I've thought as I walk from here to 7-Eleven almost every day, that if I die, you can just say, well, she died doing what she loved. One of the joys of my experience has been watching students get the support and experience they need to launch incredible careers. Many of my former students are now colleagues here at Weber State or are making differences across the country, and I continue to cheer their successes. And as public relations director, of course, I've had the thrilling experience to flip that and be able to share those stories broadly. We've been telling our ever upward stories, the stories of amazing students who achieved great things. One student, I remember particularly Corey Britton. He dropped out of high school when he was about 14, worked in construction for a number of years, decided he wanted to go back to school at about 40 to be an example to his children. He drove over to Weber State. He drove to Weber State and he sat outside the admissions building, too afraid to walk inside. And he sat there for so long that the building closed, and he drove home and he told his wife, sorry, they were closed, he couldn't do it. Later that night, he admitted to her what he'd done and got brave enough, came back the next day. It happened to be Halloween and everybody was wearing costumes. And he said, for some reason that helped me so much because I thought, oh, it just relaxed him. He enrolled. He graduated in computer science with nearly a straight 4.0. He's working his dream job now. He says they can take him to lunch. He just loves it. And those have been wonderful stories that we have been able to tell. I've also had the great experience on working on events such as Crystal Crest Homecoming, Dream 125, the inauguration of President Mortensen. And what's so special is we don't go outside for talent for those events. We just look to our alumni, faculty, staff, students. We have all it takes to put on exceptional experiences here at Weber State. It's been a great pleasure to work with all of you. With colleagues who have inspired me and mentored me and supported me in both the Department of Communication and Marketing and Communications. There are nearly 8,000 working days in a career of 30 years. And the blessing of my career is that I can return to any one of those 8,000 days and find students, colleagues, and friends who made my life meaningful and rewarding. Thank you for letting me be part of the great, great, great Weber State family.
Did you guys think I was gonna fall? You forgot your award. Excuse me. It takes a woman, right, to get a man on that, always. We will now watch the video about our next recipient, Susan Matt. After Susan's video, Jason Smith will present Susan with her award.
Winning the Dixon Award is a real honor, and I'm so glad to be at the treat company. Allison Hess is amazing, so it's great to be the same year she is. But I do think that there are so many other people on campus who deserve it as well, because Weber State is an institution that's dedicated to serving students and the community. So I'm grateful for it, but also aware of what I do is very typical on this campus. I've always tried to make history as accessible as possible to as broad an audience as possible. I'm a social historian, so I focus on the history of ordinary Americans, farmers, sailors, soldiers, families, children, the enslaved, immigrants. You have it, not just the history of presidents and generals, but the history of ordinary people. So one of my goals has been to make people realize that they too are historical actors, and as such, they can have an effect on history just as generations before have. Another thing that I've really focused on is trying to expand my sense of the classroom. The campus doesn't stop at Harrison, right? It's all across Ogden, all across Weber County, all across Davis County. And so reaching out to the communities that support and sustain us is really important. I've also spent a lot of time doing research, and I found research outside of the classroom has really enlivened my classroom. So I've been grateful for the support that Weber State has shown for research on this campus. My husband is my #1 person to thank, my best friend, my collaborator across campus. There are wonderful friends in the history department. My department chair, Sarah Dant, nominated me for this. And I thank her, colleagues across the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences and across campus as well. So there are too many people to name, but I'm grateful for the support and friendship that I've had here.
It is a privilege to be here and to be able to present this award to Professor Matt. I do want to congratulate you, Allison. I always have read the signpost sitting down. So, and thank you for the hundreds of issues of the signpost that I've enjoyed over the years. So thank you. I have never met Professor Matt, and as I accepted the opportunity to present her with this wonderful award, I did, as most people would, go and do a little research. We've just heard about that, and wow, there is a lot that Professor Matt has been involved in, and just an awesome professor. As you read a little bit about Professor Matt in our program, in that very first paragraph, it's powerful of what speaks to me and to my heart. She believes students have the power to change the world and endeavors to make history relevant to each one by extending the study of the past to as many people as possible. And I'm sure I would have enjoyed you as a professor during my time here at WSU. And as I have 3 young single adults in our home, 2 are Weber State Wildcats currently, and 1's a Utah Ute. We have lots of conversations at our home about professors. And I was introduced to something that I was not aware of, that was not around in 1996 when I was here. But it's ratemyprofessor.com. And this just really speaks to who I think Susan is. The first 3 comments from students says, I love Dr. Matt. She's so approachable, understanding, and one of those interesting professors that you forget how long class has been going on from listening to her. If you have the option to pick her as a thesis advisor, do it. The next student said, excellent and detailed lectures. She was very kind and accommodating during this COVID-19 crisis and moved to online classes and discussions well. Last of all, Professor Matt may have been one of the best professors I've ever had. She was encouraging, energetic, and brought a great energy to the classroom. If you have the choice, I would recommend taking a course from her every time. Professor Matt, on behalf of the Weber State Alumni Association Board of Directors and Councils, it is my pleasure to award you with the H. Aldous Dixon Faculty Award. Congratulations. We'll now hear from Professor Matt, and when I won't stick them up here, but both she and Allison, these flowers go with you as well today. So.
Thank you so much, Jason, for those very kind and overly generous words. And thank you too to the Alumni Association and to the Dixon family for this award. It means a lot and it's a great honor. I also want to thank Sarah Dant and Julie Rich, who out of the blue kind of nominated me for this. I was really surprised and very grateful. So thank you. I can't see where Sarah is. Oh, there's Sarah. I was trying to make eye contact. Thank you. Thank you all. And finally, I want to say I'm so honored to be here with Allison, who's been a great friend over the years. I've watched her as a faculty member and as the director of public relations. And people always talk about how Weber State is a hidden gem, and both in your work as a faculty member and as the public relations director, you have remedied that, making us not so hidden after all. So kudos to you and congratulations. Weber State is an incredibly inspiring place to teach and work, because I think it's institutions like these, and I mean open admissions universities, that are fundamental to sustaining our democracy. In a world where it sometimes seems we're teetering on the brink of disaster, it offers hope. It opens doors to everyone, and wonderful things happen on campus when people walk through those doors. From all walks of life, from around the world, we have engaging and lively conversations that are important and bring people together. From all backgrounds, from all walks of life, from all age groups, from 16 to 96 in our classrooms with the lifelong learners. And what I've appreciated so much in recent years as our society has become increasingly polarized is that this campus is one place where people, at least for 1 hour a day, listen to each other and listen to each other respectfully. And that gives me a great deal of hope. In spring of 2020, when the pandemic was looming but hadn't started yet, I was teaching an urban history seminar, and I had about 5 or 6 lifelong learners, retirees who take the class for a nominal fee, and about 15 students. And once the pandemic hit and we transferred to Zoom, almost everybody, both lifelong learners and more traditionally aged students alike, stayed on throughout the semester. I think it was kind of a lifeline and a source of structure to these wildly unstructured days. At the end of that class, one of the lifelong learners, I would say he turned, but it was on Zoom, so he kind of addressed the younger students and said how impressed he was with the rising generation. And the students in response, and this is their words, said, well, we're very pleased to get to know the perspective of the old timers. And so that kind of cheered me up. More recently, during the hot topics courses that I've organized and everybody else has taught, I didn't have to do any of the work. I just put people on a schedule, but we've had topics where people had strong passions and sometimes very differing opinions. And I was struck once again how civil and respectful people were and how eager they were to learn from each other, or at least listen. And so these were hopeful moments in the midst of a polarized society as well. I also think Weber State is an important institution for sustaining a kind of social democracy by giving students social mobility, because we have open doors here and we need to open them even wider. We see students walk through those open doors, and after spending 4 years or 6 years or sometimes 8 years here, they're now graduating. And as graduation rolls around, I think about how our open doors have open doors for them. They walk through our open doors and then they graduate, and there are even more open doors that they're encountering. Doors that open and give them an entree into rewarding work, engaged citizenship, and a life driven by intellectual curiosity. And I think that's
another real way that Weber State is helping reinforce our democracy, open conversations, and open access. So I'm very glad to be a part of Weber State. It's become an important part of my life. We've put down roots in Ogden, and I'm very grateful for the award and for all of you. So thank you so much.
To be clear, I would have thought a mere 2 issues either one of you. You are both fantastic. Can we give them one more round of applause? As we all work towards supporting the best and the brightest students at Weber State University, we couldn't do it without the incredible staff and faculty. We are proud to carry on the traditions and core values of those who came before us. We are proud to be a part of this, say it with me, great Weber State family. Thank you again for coming. Please enjoy some beautiful refreshments and an opportunity to congratulate our recipients, Allison and Susan, and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.